Welcome back. CEOs of 16 major American companies are now signing on to a letter urging lawmakers to overhaul the tax code, including passing a controversial border adjustment tax. The leaders argued that the latter would, quote, effectively end the Made in America tax that creates an unfair advantage for foreign-based companies at the expense of U.S. jobs and economic growth. Joining us right now is Houlihan Lokey, Managing Director and Industrials Group Co-Head, Jim Lavelle. Jim, good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning, Maria.
How do you see this whole border adjustment argument? What do you make of their rationale that, yes, put it forth?
Well, I actually believe this is the beginning of a bigger conversation. It was recently, obviously, where all the retailers came out and they have their coalition for affordable American products. So this is just catalyzing more of a debate. And I think that's what the American people want and what they're going to need. At the end of the day, decision makers want clarity. They want to know what the rules of the game will be. They want to obviously have them logical, be fair, be good, make sense for everyone. But we do need clarity on this. And there is this historic opportunity to make fundamental change so that we can catch up to where other countries have gone.
Right.
There's been a long time here now where taxes have gone away from us.
Bob, how do you see it?
Yeah, well, Jim, you're involved in hundreds of transactions, Houlihan, Lokey. You guys do a fantastic job. What are you hearing from, these CEOs and the private equity groups that you're working with?
Well, Bob, as a matter of fact, we had an offsite just recently, and we had some of the best and biggest investors in the industrial space, and we're obviously always working with CEOs and CFOs as well. And what they want really are three things, or what they're worried about is three things. One is protectionism. And that was a bit of a surprise, actually, but it was the #1 issue that came up at this meeting. Another is going to be what is actually going to happen in D.C. Will we have 8 more years of no change or anti-business environment? So we're going to have a logjam or results. And then finally, is 2% growth the new norm? A real shock for executives that they have to deal with.
No, I mean, I think that's why Stephen Mnuchin and company are saying, look, we're going to have this tax reform program. They want to get out of a 2% world, right?
Right. That's the central reason. Like, everything that this administration needs to do should be framed in how does it help the economy, how does it help raise wages for your average person. In terms of the timing of anything, what are you hearing? Because, again, it's you want something comprehensive, you want overall reform, but not in 4 years. We want it now.
Yes, yes. So, as you know, it's very complicated. We have the Affordable Health Care Act as part of this. There's some procedural issues that go with changing that to change legislation for taxes, et cetera. But at least most of the people that I'm listening to are thinking late in 2017 we might have some clarity on taxes. It could even be early next year, but most people are hoping for the latter part of this year.
We want something done, but we want it done right. And it would be fantastic to get a great new tax code in tomorrow, but the American people also need to have the time to hear the arguments and make a decision for themselves so that they can tell their representatives, I'm leaning this way or that. And this is, like you said, this is such a complicated situation. When we talk about that border tax, it affects exchange rates, and that affects how it affects us, because we were talking about, does it increase the price of goods for people? And we've had wages that have been stagnant for a couple of years now. We can't put that. You got all these people going into retirement. Baby boomers are turning 70 this year. The first one, you got 1.5 million going into 70 every year for the next 15 years. We can't be raising prices on just their basic goods and clothing and food.
Well, is that what's going to happen? As soon as a company gets a 20% border adjustment tax, you think they turn around and raise prices by 20%?
Maria, we have created this global supply chain over the past few decades, quite frankly. So this will be a very big change for the system, no doubt about it. I mean, if you look at manufacturing going back and forth to Mexico, coming in from China, we were working on a transaction for an American company in Mexico. Some of the biggest clients were Japanese groups. So everything is very much interrelated. I think that we're going to have to come up with something that's logical. It makes sense. Ultimately, we do need a better business environment. Taxes are going to be part of that because, as you were saying, it actually creates jobs. It creates opportunities.
And, Jim, real quick, a lot of these CEOs are counting on repatriation to help their capital redeployment. Yes or no?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you think that will happen?
Yeah.
It's an interesting discussion to have in terms of this border adjustment tax, but if we don't get tax reform in 17, and let's say it's not retroactive to the beginning of 17, right, do the markets sell off?
Oh, yeah. I think without question.
Yeah.
And I don't know how long investors are willing to wait on this. If you get deep into the spring and it doesn't look like there's movement, that's why so many more people think there will be tax cuts and not reform, because there will be so much pressure on this Republican Congress to do something to benefit the economy, and they don't want the stock market to fall out from under them.
Markets expect 17.
Yeah. You've seen a lot of action in 17 like last year, Jim, relative to M&A and trades?
Absolutely. And there is this relentless pressure, particularly on public CEOs, to grow. And as you've been talking about, for
tough an economy that isn't.
It's very, very difficult. It's very, very difficult. This 2%, is that the new norm? It's a real issue. So what CEOs have been doing is actually acquiring companies and making that part of their normal rhythm of doing business.
Yeah.
So it's a real need for them. But we see more of that happening, Bob, unless, of course, there's some crazy change on interest rates or some other issue.
Well, we'll see. I mean, Mnuchin said he's looking for 4% growth soon into this experiment. So we'll see about that. Jim, good to see you. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Final
If you do
point?
things like on the infrastructure program and whatnot, you could actually see very nicely elevated growth.
A double from here. Jim, good to see you. Thank you, Jim Lavelle, joining us